Hello, this is Jackie, and today's topic will be about autism spectrum disorder. I'm going to talk about this because it affects our family, and the Board of DD is involved with our family, providing in-home supports for my son, and now he's transitioned into adulthood. So, me, like a lot of other parents, we have to worry about that. Like, officers and just regular people, not understanding our children. I mean, we already had to deal with it when they were little, and maybe they were crying at a store and people didn't understand why. Just spank them. And it didn't work that way. It doesn't work that way with all children, and not knowing and really educating myself more so the last year, more than ever. And, it took a lot of family. It took a lot of patience. I never thought we'd make it this far. Back then when my son was little, the only way to get him help was to give up custody. But you don't have to do that anymore. You can get help while maintaining custody of your child. It's just a heartbreaking thing. I mean, it's like you have more than one child. You have to keep that child safe as well as the other child. It was a very, very difficult time when he was growing up to now. I mean, he still has some issues, but he's getting better. But now I kind of feel like, I don't know if most parents feel like their kid, they'll get to a certain age and then they just stop. Not stop growing, but just stop, like learning at a certain age. And your biggest fear is people taking advantage of them. I remember last year he walked to the store down the street and he had a $50 bill. He came back with a $1 bill. And he said, "Well, what did you buy?" He said, "I bought the pop and some chips, Mom." And I'm like, "Okay, well, where's your money?" "Here it is." And I had to go back to the store and get the money that was owed to him. I mean, thank goodness they had it taped because they did owe him, which isn't the first time. I don't know if any other parents out there with autism have gone through this. Like, my son went up to the mall, and he decided, well, really his friends decided that they all needed new phones. So my son decided to get a phone on his own, and without discussing it, and we wind up having to take it back. The gentleman gave us such a hard time. He says, "I'll give everything back except for the $50. So that's when I asked for the supervisor. He said he was off today. I said, "Well, then can you give me the regional supervisor? Here's his number. You call him." I said, "No, why don't you call him?" And, I had to literally look, I will have all the family and friends up here and come and protest this store because you guys are dead wrong. You know that there's an issue. You could hear when you're talking with both of them that there was issues going on. Now you don't want to refund us our money. And they refunded it. After they talked to the regional manager, he said, "Absolutely, this should have never happened." Well, flashback to 2017, my son came home with 5 phones. I mean, these are the things that we worry about when everyone's talking about inclusiveness. It's just making sure that you're, and I shouldn't say child because he's an adult, but they're all children to me because they're all my kids. I birthed them, so I might not use the right terminology. But when my child leaves this house, I worry. And I worry about people taking advantage of him. I worry about him getting upset about something, But these are everyday worries that a parent with autism spectrum disorder, or just regular autism, and there's several types of autism, so on the spectrum, has to deal with. And I wanted to make this video just to say that we care. And one thing I noticed, and that's that the autism community, we really, really stick together. We took Alan out of town, and They said that our flight, because it was like 11 in the morning or something like that, we were supposed to be there the day before, which I did not even know. And it was like, oh my God, we're stuck at the airport. Well, my son couldn't handle that very well, didn't understand what was going on. And, I had just talked to the lady and someone else overheard say autism. And they put us on the plane for free and got us on the next flight, which I was so happy and so blessed, because that could have turned into a very bad situation. A lot of people look at him and his size and they assume, oh my gosh, who is this big black guy? But in reality, not to say my son's a teddy bear, because he wouldn't like that, but he's like any other person. But we have to be very, very careful on what we're saying and how we're saying it to him, because a lot of people in the community don't understand what sensory issues mean. And I guess the best way to describe it is they say don't sit and talk in front of him, because that's the wrong thing to do. If you sit aside of him, that's the right thing to do. Because when you're sitting in front of him, he sees the TV, he sees that, he sees this, and that. We're only looking at the one thing. So that's the best way to kind of explain some of the sensory issues that they go through. That's not the only kind. There's a lot of different things. I mean, some people with autism don't talk at all. I mean, my son's very verbal. So it's a wide spectrum, and I just wish we talked more about it. Not just, here's a website and boom, go through it yourself. No, the real life is we do need some changes, of course, and I am one for inclusion. I wish there were more that we could do, though, because like even with the president trying to change the health care, that's scary for me as a parent, not just for me, but for other autistic parents and parents who have children who are autistic or Down syndrome or all the other developmental disabilities. It's very scary because we put our hopes and dreams that when we're gone, someone's going to be taking care of our children, at some point in time, and we're no longer able to do that. And now, to me, it's kind of made me very, very nervous. And unfortunately, even when we were out of state or out of the county, not a lot of people showed to the parents' meetings with me. Like, we went, but there were only a few. And the people that were there were very, very nice. Please don't misunderstand. They were so sweet. But when I asked them about this, I said, listen, I have a question I really want to ask, and it's been bothering me for quite some time. And they said, go ahead. I said, what are we going to do with our children when we get sick or if we shall pass? They all say, oh, we have estates set up. And I'm thinking, estates? Okay, that sounds great. Okay, estates. I went home and I thought about what they said a lot and figured out we don't have an estate to leave him. So where does that leave us? And now I understand why maybe more people didn't come to the meetings. Having a child with any disability is very hard. It's very hard. Most families don't stay together. We have a higher rate of drug and alcohol use. It's not easy. And, when you have someone that kind of doesn't understand boundaries and, in their mind, they might be something that they're not, or there's a whole bunch of different issues. It makes it very difficult because I feel like if my son were to go in a certain neighborhood, and they asked him to hold something, he would do it. He wouldn't think twice. It's no big deal. But then if a cop came, and he'd be like, yeah, I was holding this. And he'd be in jail. So you really have to be careful with our children. And they're our kids, and we love them no matter what they are, no matter how they are. If they're verbal, nonverbal, we still love our children. And it's sad. I had mentioned once, why can't we get a group, buy a development and stick a bunch of tiny homes on it and have security around it and stuff like that. And they told me that that's discrimination because that's not inclusive. And I know that a lot of the parents want inclusiveness. I do. I want inclusiveness for almost every single person that can be inclusiveness. But there are still some who can't handle inclusiveness unless you're going to give them 24-hour support, which is what's going to wind up having to happen because group homes aren't going to work. Like for someone with my son, group home's not going to work. That's not going to work. So what do? You try and get your kid set up the best way you can before you pass, and that's it. And it's scary. And I think as a parent, if you're out there and you're struggling with these same issues, please contact me. You can message me because we need to start discussing this more. I know there's a lot of organizations working towards bettering the situation. And I know there's no guarantees in life. I really know it now more than ever because so many things are happening and changing that, they shut down a lot of the warehouses. Well, they call them warehouses. I call them work because some people, they just work and it just doesn't work out for whatever the reason. So, that gave them somewhere to go, some hope, some out in the community, things to do. And it's beautiful when they have that. My son gets someone to take him out and do things so he's not sitting. He needs that. And if he doesn't have that, it's going to be bad. And I know that there are lots of kids like Alan. There are lots of good kids like Alan. There are lots of kids, period. Our kids are going to transition. We'll be accepting over 500,000 new people a year. In a year, that's a lot. They're going to transition to adults. So, I'm not stating that we don't talk enough about kids. We do, and we still need more changes with that. But as a parent with an adult, I think we need to talk more, and we need to sit down and discuss this. So if you're interested in discussing this, please give me a call. I would love to have on my site, I have a page that you could subscribe to, and we can get speakers, and they can come and talk, and we can all be on the same page. It's very difficult to know that your child who you love so much and if is not in jail, who's doing good, you want them to stay on the right track. And, guardianship. How many of you all out there have guardianship? Do you know the importance of guardianship with a child with disability? I didn't. I thought I did, but I didn't. I didn't think I looked at it as I didn't want to take his rights away. My son had deserved the right to try like every other American. I didn't want to take his rights away. When I went to the other county and they said, honey, that's not taking his rights away. You're protecting his rights. Because let's say Alan had a bad day and he says he doesn't want Dee Dee in his life anymore. He could do that. And there's nothing no one could do. But now with the guardian, he can't just do that because he's having a bad day. The guardian gets to make those decisions and help him with them. Alan has a lot of freedom. He can do things with his aid. He can do things, period. But it doesn't mean that he can't just turn away services just like that. One of the rules for our home is to live here, you must take your medication. If you're not going to take your medication, you cannot live in our home because we know the importance of medication. Alan knows that, and he's very much aware of that, and he respects that because he knows that I'm not playing that no medicine stuff. We're not going to go through that. My son is respectful. He doesn't understand boundaries. He doesn't understand some things, but there's a lot of things that he does understand. And I'm happy to be sharing this with you. So again, if there are any parents that have autism, or you're an autism with an adult, please speak, because I am looking to talk with you all. I think we need to gather together. Doesn't matter if you rent. I don't care if you own, if you, whatever, you just have a child or a grandchild or a niece or nephew that's in your life that has autism. I think educating the public will go a long way. And that's where I think I would like to help. Let's educate the public. Let's educate the schools. You know, everybody's worried about all the differences. Well, in life, there are going to be a lot of differences, and there are a lot of good people out here. And I like the fact that we stick together as a community. When the boy's behavioral specialist in Florida got shot, I remember on Twitter and all the outrage. We were so upset about that. Like, we wouldn't let it go. Like, I called, I texted, I did everything in the world I could do from here and make sure that this didn't just go swept under the rug again, because that was nonsense. We need to make sure our children are safe. We need to make sure the people that are providing the service for our children to take care of them are okay. So I'm so happy to be able to talk to you guys. This is not about politics. This is strictly about autism. And thanks, and have a good day. Bye.